I'm sure a lot of you watched other progressive news outlets and just even corporate news outlets talk about how Julian Assange got arrested yesterday. And of course, if you're watching this, you're probably likely to be really disappointed that the U.S. government is really putting their screws on him because they're essentially just arresting him because he's been exposing the truth and a bunch of the corruption that's been going on and with the U.S. government and other governments across Europe and other places across the world. And then there's one thing I could give the Obama administration a little bit of credit on is by not violating the Constitution in regards to prosecuting Julian Assange for blowing the whistle on his administration and other governments. But of course, they could only prosecute him based on him releasing information based on U.S. government secrets about, especially about our government just illegally starting the Iraq War, and just how we're just carte blanche, just killing just numerous civilians. I mean, tens of thousands of civilians, and just committing murder on a mass scale against civilians just to overthrow Saddam Hussein over bullshit pretenses. So that whole series of events was just breaking law after law and just violated violating international law. And all it meant was to just serve, well, either themselves, but mostly the war industry and the war profiteers in the United States. I guess those companies are multinational corporations, but a lot of those companies might have been started here, so maybe more of the money would have came to those CEOs that live here. But either ways, a lot of them or several of them are likely multinational corporations. But the thing is that whistleblowing is critical to make sure that the public is able to keep control of their government, because the government is about working for the people. The government is not an entity to serve itself. It's to serve the people. It's also not to serve the corporations, which is a big problem with the United States and with other countries across the world. And another thing is that in the U.S. Constitution, we do have the First Amendment that gives us the right for a free press. So the government can't really arrest Julian Assange because he's been exposing all their dirty little secrets. Now they want to try to cover it up by saying that, oh, he was in the he was assisting Chelsea Manning with helping to steal that information. And of course, Chelsea Manning shouldn't have been prosecuted for blowing the whistle. And remember, it was the Obama administration that prosecuted Chelsea Manning, Bradley Manning at the time, and Chelsea Manning had the longest prison sentence for a whistleblower ever. I think it was about 33 years. I guess it did help a little bit that Obama did like alleviate all the charges after 7 years, but just to drive home the fact that they wanted to prison Chelsea Manning for 30 years for blowing the whistle is just reveals that the Obama administration wasn't working for the people. That's why they wanted to crack down on Chelsea Manning. So just like the federal government was putting the screws to Chelsea Manning over whistleblowing, they're trying to put the screws to Julian Assange over exposing all their corruption that they've been at over the last 12 plus years. I didn't get to talk about this earlier because I've cut back on my show because I've had to work a regular job full time. I've actually been working overtime. But earlier I was wondering why Ecuadorian government was just not protecting Julian Assange like they should have been, but I watched Jamal Thomas talk about how the U.S. government was actually putting pressure on the Ecuadorian government to really put some shackles on Julian Assange without actually arresting him, and that's why he hasn't been able to. Well, at least for the past 7 or so years, Julian Assange has been stuck in the Ecuadorian embassy, and of course his human rights have been stripped away because even just the last 2 or 3 weeks when he tried to talk about when he wanted to talk to journalists about the horrible conditions they were forcing upon him, they really just let everybody know that, or let Assange and his colleague know that they were making sure they were recording everything they said, and probably even had videotapes to make sure anything that they did was being watched. So there's nothing he could have said to her that they wouldn't know about. And I lost some of the video, but if I forgot to say it, I just need to make sure that Trump administration going against Julian Assange is completely violating Julian Assange's right to the freedom of the press. And the courts should be able to just throw out their charges by saying you guys are just trying to arrest him because he's exposed the corruption that's been going on in the federal government over the last decade plus. So since what you guys are trying to charge him on is found to be not valid, we're going to ensure that he gets all these charges dropped, and we're going to actually improve his situation because all the violations that you guys have put him under. And we cannot have our government trying to block people or different organizations from exercising their rights to a free press. But the courts don't always represent the people either, so they may not actually be able to back them up. They might be going or working hand in hand with the federal government to really clamp down on Julian Assange and anybody else that works for a news organization that wants to expose the federal government, because freedom of the press is to make sure that we the people are running the government and making sure we're holding them to account along with the corporations. It's not so the government can be accountable and it's only working for itself, or just the government is working for the corporations and that's it. No. The government is ours. They need to be accountable to us, the people.